You're listening in on an animated discussion about Batman the Animated Series with two experts in their fields. I'm Joshua Unruh, superhero scholar.
And I'm Caleb Masters, your friendly neighborhood film critic extraordinaire from the cinematropolis.com. And today we'll discuss Season 2, Episode 14, Riddler's Reform. Joshua, now this is a title card.
A++ title card.
This is, and you know what else? This is a simple title card.
It is.
That is A++ effective.
Does it bother you that the concept of this title card is ripped off from Marvel?
Don't say that, Josh.
No, I'm not. I don't care.
Actually, no, it doesn't bother me at all.
I don't care.
It doesn't bother me.
I was just curious.
It does that. Yes. Does it look eerily similar to the Spider-Man No More?
It is 100% Spider-Man No More.
Do I care? Not a bit.
No.
And because it means something totally different in this episode. I love the music. I love that you've got the ominous silhouette.
Oh, sure.
In Spider-Man, his back is turned. On this one, though, notice it appears he's looking into the doorway. At least that was how I read it. And then you've got the costume in the corner. So, yeah, I just thought this was, following our discussion last week about simple title cards. And listen, I think there are good benefits.
It's not a requirement, but I'm interested in where your head's at.
But this one, I was like, this is simple, two really simple images with a great music cue. I got it. A whole episode right here.
So it doesn't bother you that it's ripped off from Marvel. Good. Not me either. It's an iconic image. It works. And the context is very different. Does it bother you that it is a giant lie as far as the episode is concerned, though?
Well, here's the thing. I don't know that it's a lie.
No, it is. He never leaves the Riddler persona behind until the very end.
And he burns it.
Which is, the details are not what's important. The point is, naming a thing the Riddler's Reform and showing us this image and then having him trade on his persona as the Riddler feels like a little bit of a disingenuous break between the two.
Okay.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I'm just saying, as far as telling us what the episode is about, it's very misleading as far as what the episode is about.
I hear you. I hadn't considered that. So I'll give it to you there. I think the idea is he has given up the villainy.
Okay.
That's the bait and switch, right? Obviously, he doesn't do that. But I think in the opening scene, because I did think it was strange, Riddler's Reform, first shot, he's out of prison. Cool. Next shot, he's getting out of a truck in his costume. And I was like, okay, I didn't expect that. But hey, it's pretty clear immediately, he's selling the toys thing, which we don't believe, but I think...
I love the way that it works in the episode. I really do. It's, in fact, there is an entire other story to be told about the idea of trading on your one-time villainous personality as a public relations coup and making it work. Like, that could be an episode unto itself and actually feels like a really interesting plot for Riddler to do himself.
Honestly, yes.
How do I solve a riddle of me being the Riddler? This episode is great, so I'm not shading this episode, but just saying that could have been an entire other Riddler episode.
Let's call Paul Dini up. Let's do another episode now.
I love that idea. Like, how do I solve a riddle that's the Riddler is great in turning it into like a PR coup and all that stuff. It just gave me world building ideas. And I don't even care that it's such a giant chasm between what the title card tries to tell. I think the title card remains an A title card regardless. It's just one of the things we grade them on is how much do they tell us about what the episode is going to be about. And to be honest, if we're honest, it lies.
It does, but see... Thematically, okay. By the end of the episode, yes, a lie, but that it sets the idea in our head that, maybe the Riddler's turning over a new leaf, not genuinely, but because we don't trust him. But the idea is this is not the Riddler as we've seen him before.
That's what I want to be specific about. The part that it lies about is the leaving behind of the persona of the Riddler, which is heavily implied in the title card, even if you don't know Spider-Man No More, but is definitely what they were referencing. And then that's not what the story's about at all, which again is super fine. It's still an A title card, but just, whatever objectivity we attempt to bring to this, it does mislead on what the episode is about.
Right.
It's worth pointing out, as good as it is, it does mislead.
Sure.
And that's all right, because that is the end of bad things I have to say about this episode or that title card.
So I think we've got a lot of things to talk about, Joshua, because firstly, there's the idea of, as you put it, hey, this villain who is scot-free created such an iconic character persona that he is now cashing a paycheck on. And the fact the Riddler could have very easily retired a millionaire and been fine.
Yes.
Except for that's not what drives him.
It's not what he wants. Yeah.
He wants to beat Batman at the game. And also, what I find interesting about that, though, is in the context of this episode, they have to like give him crimes that he commits on the side for no reason.
Right.
Because really, as far other than the robbery we see at the very beginning on the TV, basically this is all just a battle of wits between Batman and Riddler.
100%.
There's like no deaths. There's no.
I actually love that. I love that we see he's being successful in another way.
Right.
So even these robberies are not about the robberies. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about anything he's stealing. All he cares about is the battle of wits. And that's always a question, right? Because before he had revenge, and then another time he might be actually financing some bigger scheme, or he does have to eat or whatever. But here you can see none of that matters. This is 100% battle of wits. I love that.
Yes.
Love it.
And it really cuts to the core, I think, of what makes the Riddler such a compelling character and compelling opposite to Batman. You know what I mean? Like the crimes are inconsequential. It could have been anything, but in this one, it's just robberies. He just does it because really what it's all about is being the smartest man in the room.
Yes.
Against Batman.
Yes. And in this case, because it's Gotham, the smartest man in every room is Batman, which means I got to beat Batman.
Yes. Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree. I think, but going off back on to the former point, which is, being a villain, cashing in on your brand, really.
Yeah, there's a series of stories about this.
This is. I mean, you could look at this as a critique of capitalism that someone could get off.
We could.
I mean, listen here, guys. I'm not trying to get too crazy, but I just watched 2 Fire Festival documentaries a couple months ago about a really skeezy billionaire or some fake billionaire rich guy who's going to prison for like 4 years, slap on the wrist, going to prison for like 4 years. And I guarantee you, give him 4 years that we're going to hear about him again. And he's going to cash in on the fact that we know who he is and what Fire Festival is.
Because that's all it was in the first place, was building a fake brand to do a scheme.
Yes.
Really.
Yep.
And you, in a way, the being caught and the going to jail is supporting the next scheme in the chain.
It's part of it.
Yeah.
Because by getting caught, that's adding to your brand, right?
Exactly.
It's part of the narrative that people like the Riddler are peddling. And I think this episode does a great job at that. Hey, look, I'm going to go be a toy guy, but really that's not what he wants. That's a small part of his plan, though.
Yeah. And to be honest, I mean, we can backfill this a little bit, but I think that Riddler bamboozling some rich idiot into financing a line of Riddler toys is just more of him being the smartest man in the room. I mean, we don't talk about that relationship very much. We already show up and with it fully formed. And I'm super cool with that because I think a greedy toy magnate is going to be like, let me talk to my branding guys, and again, if Riddler's already shown up with the, how do you solve a riddle like the Riddler? Here it is.
I think it's actually really brilliant that the Riddler would take advantage of this kind of piece of society, function society. Investors, they don't really care about the toys. They don't care. Is this going to make money?
They don't care about how the return on investment comes.
They do not.
No,
and so,
not.
Yeah, the Riddler, he's an iconic guy. He didn't do anything too bad. I mean, yeah, he committed crimes, but he didn't kill anyone.
Right. They're thefts. And it's like thefts of antiques, thefts of jewels. I mean, again, I do not necessarily endorse thefts, but we're not stealing from people who can't afford to be stolen from.
Right. And I'm saying this because I think that's a very real world thing that could very easily happen. Is some greedy investor comes in, says, yeah, he didn't do anything too bad, so I'm gonna put all my money behind this guy to help generate more revenue because he's already got a persona and icon that people know. I'm gonna cash in on this thing that people know because at the end of the day, he doesn't really care how he gets the money back. Nope. It's completely legitimate and legal. And like I said, as long as this person didn't kill anyone or do anything that air quotes that bad, it's good business, right?
We are literally living in a world that is burning down around our ears because somebody who made a fake brand about themselves was able to convince us that not entirely illegal, just in poor taste, was a thing we should all support.
Ooh. Real world. Ooh, boy. You're right, though. That's a great example. That's a great example of a con artist putting a brand out. Anyway, yeah. That's a real thing.
So I believe the background to this episode, I believe that I'm kind of okay with Riddler bilking that guy out of Well, I mean, he's making him money too, but like convincing him to do something in poor taste, and then it went down in flames around that guy's ears.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
This is a PR nightmare
Yes.
now. Oh, I was just a vehicle for Riddler to do more Riddler crimes. Great. I went from looking like a genius of branding to looking like an idiot of branding overnight. I can backfill some comeuppance for that guy. I'm good with it.
Right.
Yeah, that part is excellent.
Well,
most of this is excellent.
And again, I think it speaks to the intelligence of the Riddler that he would know how to exploit that, and how he was the whole toy thing was just all of that. That would have been a brilliant scheme on its own. Cash out as a millionaire and be good. But no, that was just a cover for him to get at Batman again. I think that speaks to who the Riddler is and the best way we've seen on the show so
Absolutely
far.
Core Riddler stuff right there. So I have one, it's not even a complaint. It's a thing that I sort of wish they had done differently. All right. But before I can go into that, I want to ask you, were you a watcher of the G.I. Joe cartoon?
I have seen episodes. Would I say I was a watcher? No.
Are you familiar with the episode The Viper is Coming?
No.
Okay, I'm going to try not to run too hard down this rabbit trail, but it comes back around to a thing I think would have made this an even more interesting episode.
And the Viper is coming, so it doesn't have anything to do with like zombies heading south because things are coming. Okay.
No.
Okay.
What you have is a G.I. Joe member who gets a call on his personal phone line in his house, back when we used to have those. And it is a heavily accented sort of Eastern European voice who says something cryptic about the Viper. And I'm not going to go into what the things are, but he gets, over the course of this, that Joe gets several of these calls. And every time he takes these cryptic comments back to the G.I. Joe team and they try and figure it out like it's a riddle or a puzzle. And every time they do it, they find some Cobra shenanigans every single time. Finally, at the end, he gets the last phone call and the Viper says, I will be there on this day at this time. And they are like loaded for bear, like sandbags, machine guns, tanks, all in front of this Joe's house. And over the horizon comes an old man carrying a squeegee and a bucket and a broom. He's the window wiper.
Oh my God.
The window viper. The whole thing has been a massive misunderstanding, but at every turn, they extrapolated what they thought were riddles into things that turned out to be map coordinates or whatever that took them to Cobra shenanigans. Okay, so I apologize for that giant rabbit trail, but for the listeners who may not know, the fact that we knew almost from jump that the Riddler had not gone straight, that this was a plot, I feel like is a little bit of a weaker spot. Think about how amazing this episode would have been if we had been thinking maybe Batman was wrong, but he still kept stopping crimes. So we would understand, like, Batman is stopping crimes based on these riddles.
Paranoia.
Is it paranoia and coincidence?
I think I do think the episode plants that. Because even me, like the second he's watching that commercial with the Riddler, he's like making all these notes and like, I get that. That's totally Batman. But it was like he was so certain immediately.
Right.
And I do think they were trying to place some doubt that maybe he was reading too much into it too fast. But here's the thing. It's a Riddler. Call. Yes.
The Riddler gets a phone call from the Hoods at the jewel heist before he goes into the party. So I'm just saying, just picture if we don't have that phone call.
Right.
And the whole party scene plays out exactly as it was, with Riddler getting a comeuppance on Batman and Batman, laying down the law and leaving, sort of upstaging him. But in that moment, we would be like, what if Batman's wrong? Though?
Yeah, I kind of wish they would have rolled with that a little bit too.
Because the decisions they made are not bad, but that's just a really interesting, nuanced thing. And it's like they almost do it. They almost do it
because Riddler even starts talking about it in his little monologue before he opens the bookshelf. Like he's saying, well, maybe you're not seeing anything at all. Maybe you're just seeing what you want to see. And I was like, that's a really good idea. Yeah, they could have pushed that a little further.
It's not bad. I really love this episode very much.
Yeah.
I just realized that if you pluck that one scene out and we don't know that Riddler's at the core of this until Batman goes to the toy fair, which think about how long they spent in the toy fair with nothing happening to him.
Oh yeah.
Like it's not a huge amount of time. It's not so long we're bored, but it's kind of a lot of real estate. So, do that half again, is take the time from the phone call scene and put that on him wandering through the toy fair with nothing happening. And you have a lot of ambiguity where we, the viewer, might be sitting there going, maybe Batman's wrong. Maybe the Riddler isn't really doing this. And then he comes up on the giant TV and you're like, that's my payoff.
We knew it.
So again, not bad. I just couldn't help thinking how different and interesting the approach would have been.
Well, and I wonder if they did that just so they could have the jewel heist as like a set piece in the middle to kind of keep the pace moving along or something.
But I think you can still have that because remember, Batman says he flipped it over and figures out that it's because he was at the wrong crime.
Right.
It would actually reinforce the paranoia and getting things accidentally right. I think it's just a different take. I was very intrigued.
I think you're right. I think it would have been more compelling had we not known for sure that the Riddler, because of the phone call. I think the phone call tells us, okay, obviously.
This is definitely, and we're way early in the second act when that phone call happens.
Oh, yeah.
If we didn't know until the beginning of the third act that it was the Riddler, and then we go from the explosion to him burning his costume and to like, this was my plan all along. I'm always sad at funerals. And that's when we go, oh no,
Right.
like it really pays off. Again, there are no bad decisions in this episode. It's just a what if.
And hey, I just got to throw out there too, the riddles in this episode were great. They were so good that, again, I questioned. I was like, I don't know if this is a riddle or if it's just a thing he's saying.
Exactly. Yes. And
tells
that's
us
why
how-
it made me think of the Viper is coming.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I love how it just highlights how Batman thinks too. Like just everything fits into this bigger scheme. Every detail fits into a bigger story that's unfolding in front of him.
Yes.
And he's trying to figure out how it all fits together.
That's detective stuff, right? Like, and it's also, if you're very, very clever about it, his Achilles heel. Like
Yes.
if you start getting him to imagine patterns where there are no patterns, you can humiliate Batman that way. That's another like really good angle on a Riddler story. Anyway, again, love it. I love Riddler's reform. I love it. Just, in fact, I love it so much that it makes me think writer thoughts. I don't know that there's a better thing I can say about a piece of fiction than it makes me think all these other writer thoughts.
Right.
What if we did this? What if we did that? How would we have viewed this if we didn't know so early?
Right. There's so many options
Yeah.
that they could have taken, so many approaches they could have taken to the story. Well, yeah, no, I agree. I think this is a top-notch episode. I thought the party scene was great because it again, phone call aside, like it gave Riddler his moment of triumph.
Absolutely. Multiple moments of triumph.
Yes.
He really gives a comeuppance to Batman. He wins the rhetorical point at the party.
Right.
Now Batman wins on style, but he wins rhetorically, and that's pretty great.
Yeah.
That's still being smarter than jumping out the window for dramatic effect.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I think it's nice every once in a while to see Batman lose.
Yeah, wrong-footed.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that that was a great moment. And it only added more payoff to the conclusion.
Yes.
Which is, of course, Riddler's so sure he's got him boxed in this room. There's nothing they can do. They cut away. So that we, the audience, we know Batman's going to survive.
Sure.
But like
we're genre savvy.
Exactly. But we're like, it's one, how did he survive? So the question isn't, did Batman survive? It's, we know he's going to survive.
Yeah.
And we have the same question as the Riddler. How did you survive? So there was a second that I was like, oh, I can't wait to see how he survived. And then and I think it's so funny how the Riddler was so willing to just spill everything. Because again, it wasn't about anything but having all the answers. He was just willing to say, oh yeah, I'll tell you exactly how I did all those crimes if you just tell me how you got out of that.
Right. It's fine. I got it. I will tell you everything. My riddles are nothing. I already know the answers to those. I need to know the answer to your riddle.
Yes.
And it can't. So that's interesting to bring up because we have talked repeatedly about how we're going to see it in the next episode. Batman uses the psychosis of his villains against them as a weapon to apprehend them, to save lives. It's
a pressure point.
Difficult space to live in because it's pretty cruel in a way, but it's always in the service of a greater good, and we can trust Batman and that kind of thing. I mean, they created the space where he had to do this to them in order to save these lives and stop this scheme.
Yes.
It doesn't land on him. He would almost be foolish not to use every tool in his arsenal. Right. Is this the first and probably only time that we have used a psychosis as punishment instead of as weapon?
I think so.
It's pretty egregious and cruel.
Awful.
Yeah.
Because he goes back to Arkham, and like that last shot was just eerie. He's saying, "How did you do it? You lied. I must know." And that he's just screaming at the top of his lungs in his cell, so much though that all the other inmates are covering their ears.
Right.
And then I also know I think he makes some air quotes cameo appearances in the new Batman Adventures after the reanimation. But I believe this is the last Riddler
episode. It's like he didn't come out of that cell.
No,
not really.
No,
he's broken.
He is broken
because Batman gave him a riddle he can't solve. Batman's not a perfect person. I don't blame him entirely. It's just since we have noticed that psychosis as weapon, I was like, oh, this is psychosis as punishment, and that's different.
And this is Batman definitely holding something over the Riddler's head that he could forever hold over his head if he wanted to.
That said, if Riddler is too busy thinking about that riddle to break out of Arkham and do a bunch of other crimes, it's... Man,
the greater good.
It's a murkier gray area than using them as a weapon where it's like, well, it was that or these innocent people die. Do what you got to do.
Or it's like a one-time thing. Like, I know I had to do that, but that was only to stop you. No, this is, no, you're living in this.
You're
forever.
living in this hell that I created for you. And I know it will be bad for you. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know that I have an answer. It was just very interesting.
Yes. Yeah. And eerie ending. I think probably this is the best Riddler episode, almost hands down. I think it's top notch. Again, I think there's been 2 others and I think they've been good. I think they've gotten better with each episode, probably.
You know what I think it is? I think parts of his first appearance are good and other parts are less so.
Yes.
They kind of flip.
In the second one,
the riddles get better, but we don't. And what his scheme is very good, both the vengeance and erasing Edward Nygma. But then the actual episode...
It's kind of weird.
Doesn't pay off quite like we'd like. And it's like, here, we figured it out.
Yep.
We have cracked the Riddler formula.
Right.
It's both who he is as a person and a villain, and the riddles are amazing.
All in one.
Yep. It's excellent.
Yeah. All right, Joshua. Well, as always, it seems like we agree. This is an essential watch.
I really do think so. It is the best Riddler episode, bar none. We're not going to get another Riddler episode. So if it's going to be the apotheosis of Riddler episodes, you better tune in.
You catch this one. I mean, I think all of them are at least recommended watchers. This is the best one that you're like, no, you must. If you're watching one of them, you must watch this episode.
And the acting is really good. On top of the episode being the best Riddler episode and just being a really well put together, plot, the acting in this is legitimately amazing. We've loved John Glover as the Riddler since minute 1.
Yes.
But he is so smug and terrible the entire episode.
Home run.
And then at the end is screaming in torment. And I believe both of these extremes.
I loved that party sequence. The way he's just like so smirk about I beat Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah. John Glover, home run. So
must watch.
Must watch. Okay, Joshua. So as we always, we're going to close out the show with some alternate media recommendations. What recommends do you have for our listeners today?
I have 2. And much like the last episode, I'll admit one is a little self-serving, but I'll just let you listeners know that I wrote a Batman fanfic once upon a time. It wasn't that long ago, actually. It was after I had become a professional working writer, and it was supposed to go in a fanfic anthology that fell apart. But I wrote a Batman and Robin versus the Riddler fanfic.
Nice.
It was, I will tease it this way. It's based on a riddle that I came up with when I was playing Batman toys with my son, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, listeners, but I came up with this riddle, and from the other room, my wife was like, that one's pretty good. You should write it down. And a year or 2 later, I was approached to be part of this fanfic anthology, and so I built the story around this riddle. You can't find it for purchase anywhere because I like not getting sued and cease and desist letters. But it is hosted at wattpad.com. There will be a link in the show notes that will let you read The Riddle in Nygma.
Ooh, there you go. Fan fiction's a fun read, guys.
My other recommendation is significantly less self-serving. It is Out of Sight, the greatest movie the 90s gave us.
Better than The Matrix?
Well, you remember I have problematic feelings about The Matrix,
I know.
and I actually will say yes. I would, but even without that, I would say yes. It certainly did not have the cultural impact that The Matrix had. But if you just start looking at sheer quality, here is Out of Sight. It's George Clooney, it's Jennifer Lopez, it's a bunch of other, it's Ving Rhames, it's a bunch of other people that Michael Keaton is in it.
Oh man, 90s gold here.
As Jennifer Lopez's deadbeat FBI agent boyfriend.
Yes.
It's spectacular on every level. And at its core, it's a story about an ex-con who fails spectacularly at reforming. Also, by the way, it's George Clooney, so you know that this is a con who is too clever by half.
Oh, yes.
And for all of these reasons, I think it's a great tie-in with Riddler's reform.
All right.
Caleb, tell me about yours.
All right, so I have another one here. Listen, these are problematic times we live in where we have to ask the question, about art. So I'm going to make a recommendation with the caveat that there are people you probably don't like who made this movie, but it's a good story. What can I say? It's a good story. It was a good story before these people got outed recently, and it's a good story now. Unfortunately, those people just are not good people and have done awful things. So, a great riddle that is unsolvable except by the only man who holds the answers is The Usual Suspects, 1995. It is a riddle that is unsolvable because it's all a lie.
Yep. Yeah.
And only a very clever, only Batman, I think, would have been able to have picked up on those, because the clues are there. If you were paying really close attention, all the things he's dropping, like every time he makes a reference, there'll be a cut to some in the frame. There'll be one of those clues. You're like,
There's
oh
a
yeah,
clue.
there it is. But you don't know you're looking at the clue. So really, the only man who had on the first viewing, I think it's an unsolvable riddle, much like Riddler being locked in the cell at the end of that movie.
Yeah, can't figure it out.
Episode.
How did Batman survive?
Mm-hmm. So imagine watching The Usual Suspects without the answers. I imagine that's how the Riddler felt. So I think it's a great crime story.
It is. Usual Suspects is an excellent
It's got
film.
a lot of noir elements to it. And yeah, problematic people worked on it, but I think it's an essential crime film to watch if you're going to look at crime films from starting at, like, say, the 60s and 70s on to the early aughts and now the 2010s. So
we've said it on this show before. We'll say it again here, that watching things that have terrible people in them, reading things written by terrible people, enjoying art created by awful human beings is not the problem. The problem is accepting that awfulness uncritically.
Right.
So I'll close it out with enjoy Usual Suspects for what it is, because if you're not going to deal with problematic culture, you have no culture in the Western world. You don't have it. If you're not prepared to stand on the shoulders of giants that were also terrible people, you have no culture. Just don't uncritically accept the terrible.
Everyone's human, and sometimes terrible people make amazing things, and vice versa. Like, it goes both ways. And just be critical. Yeah, Kevin Spacey's he's
not a great guy.
He's probably one of the worst. But at the same time, guy can act.
Yes.
And Bryan Singer can execute a film.
Well, that about wraps up this animated discussion. Caleb, where can people go to continue the conversation with you?
Well, Joshua, you can always find me on Twitter talking about film, television, video games, and all sorts of other pop culture goodness at C Masters Talk. That's letter C Masters Talk. I'm also the editor-in-chief and film critic at the Cinematropolis, and we publish these in-depth essays on all types of different films, oftentimes including science fiction and superhero films, all the stuff you'd want to read about. And you can find all these articles at thecinematropolis.com. Joshua, what about you?
I'm also most active on Twitter, where you can find me easily enough at Joshua Unruh. And remember that an animated discussion is a Pulp Diction Productions program and is 100% supported by listeners like you. To find out how you can keep this and our other shows in production, check out patreon.com/pulpdictionproductions. In our next episode, we're going to be talking about Season 2, Episode 15, Second Chance. Until next time, we'll see you back here. Same bat time, same bat channel.